Ti isio blas? Mae gwledd yn aros amdano ni.
Pwy hon?
Mae'n gweithio i ni heno. Paratoi'r bwyd, gweini, cyda'r orchestri.
Mae'n rieni mor intense. Mae pam mae dad yn joio dod ma. I ladd creaduriaid niwed. So ti'n gweud lot i ti?
Siadi dy hi.
Di Glenda'n gwybod bod ti'n lleisu dwylo? Wedi'r gwbl y diafol i'w diogi. A bob dim ni wel mor flasus.
Gnafo! Ti'n cymryd popeth. Dwi'n ymweddi. Pa'n anghofio am y pwding?
Next up is this slow burn Welsh thriller called The Feast. I don't even know what... Eric, you're talking about not spoiling Tick, Tick, Boom. I don't even know what to say about The Feast without spoiling it for a lot of people. I've been reading a lot of reviews, and they've been spoiling the bleeping you-know-what out of this. And I don't know what can we say? Bruce, what can we say about The Feast that wouldn't be really much of a spoiler? What do you think?
I would say it centers on a well-to-do Welsh family that has to get a stand-in. What is she considered? What is she?
She's sort of a server, a waitress.
Right.
She's
so they have to get a stand-in for their usual server for a feast that they're going to have for some friends and some kind of clients, and it very quickly goes to odd places.
Okay, so The Feast, yes, exactly. So this woman, she doesn't really say much. She's very young, probably in her early 20s. She's a mysterious woman. She pretty much monotone. You're wondering, why the heck is she not speaking? But she is, like Bruce said, she is a stand-in for someone else who couldn't make the feast. And her job is to actually serve these people and, actually fix the table, make sure everything is nice and clean and proper and everything works well. And she is working for a very well-to-do family. There's 2 spoiled teens and there's 2 very spoiled parents as well. So essentially this whole entire movie, you get to see an entitled, well-to-do family in their own weird passive-aggressive way abuse the server for most of the narrative, and she pretty much takes it because she's very unresponsive to their actions. She doesn't get aggressive with them when they try to get aggressive with her. She just plays it to her own tune. Again, this movie is a horror thriller. A lot of people say it's an eco-thriller. This house is set right in the middle of a countryside. Okay, so there's a lot of developments going on. Right in the middle of this countryside, this beautiful modern home is where this family lives, and it's gorgeous. Anyone would want to live here. But you're wondering, they have all this money, they're well-to-do, all that stuff. Why is each of these family members, what's wrong with them? Why are they dysfunctional in their own right? And by the end of the movie, we get to actually find out what really ails this family and why this server really doesn't have much to say. Bruce, your thoughts on The Feast?
This is probably the exact reverse for me from Tick, Tick, Boom, in that I could not recommend this to very many people, but I really liked it. But I could see most people not being on the ride for this. This is,
Why?
I really enjoyed this. I think this is a hard sell for most people, though. And one thing that we kind of, without getting into spoilers, I really enjoyed the Katie, the character that we're talking about, the server.
Right. Very good in this movie.
Yeah, she's really good. And kind of to describe to people, like, she's really monotone. She almost acts as if she's in a daze, or if like she is an alien from another world. Now, I'm not spoiling anything. She's not an alien from another world, so Don't worry.
That's a
But
performance.
she-
If that doesn't work, Bruce, sorry. If that performance doesn't work, this movie just falls flat on its face.
Yeah. And this is one of those movies where you either trust that all of these things are going to add up and then that works for you, or you don't, and you just don't even want to stay with it. Also, I feel like this is one of those movies that probably is a really updated version of some Welsh folktale, with everybody standing in for characters from some ancient folktale. I don't know that folktale, but I still enjoyed it quite a bit. And we should probably warn people, if they do stick with this, it does get pretty graphic at points. So, but I really enjoyed it. Yeah,
or
pretty graphic.
Ugly. I can't believe what's going on in my eyes. Kind of graphic.
Yeah, well, I've seen a lot of things. So.
A lot of things. Let's just say, folks, it really. After watching this movie, I am permanently scarred, and I may not. The word intimacy is now just hard scrabble off my Webster dictionary. I don't know if I'm ever gonna get to that place. Eric Holmes, what place did you get to when you saw The Feast? What was your overall thoughts?
My first thought was, I hope this movie ends soon. Basically the first half of the movie did not work for me at all. It was really pretty, but it was just kind of a little, you talk about deliberately paced. This seemed like it was going in reverse most of the time, and I was just kind of waiting for the movie to do something, like anything.
You were frustrated, right? Were you frustrated through?
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah.
And then the second half of the movie it shows up, and that's when it kind of starts. It kind of almost goes into David Lynch territory at times. Things just don't make sense anymore. I kind of had a similar thought that Bruce did. That I feel like I'm missing something. Like with antlers, with the creature in antlers. Like if you know about it, it's gonna or Undine. If you know about it, it's gonna pay off more. I feel like there's something going on like that with this, and I just don't know what it is. But I did like the last half quite a bit. In fact, like a lot of the transitions they had, like the Lynch type transitions, where like you got like someone's face or their body, and then they do that. The fire kind of dissolves in and dissolves out, and then they do stuff like that. Those are really cool, and I got a lot out of those. As far as what it's about, I'm too stupid for this movie. Apparently, a lot of this movie went right over my head.
Well, look, no.
Yeah,
okay. Did that third act, and even though it went over your head, as it will for a lot of people, okay, in all fairness, did it resurrect? Did it save the entire movie for you as far as
it got me interested for sure. Like it was one of those where like I was watching going, I have no idea what's going on. Like I understand what's going on in the frame. What I don't understand is I get a feeling that it's trying to say something else, and I don't know what that is yet. But it's also interesting enough that it's like I kind of want to dig into this a little deeper and see if I can figure it out. But
would you recommend it personally?
Right over my head.
Okay, would you recommend the movie? Did it work? I mean, did it save the whole thing as far as a recommend, or is it a movie that it didn't save it for you ultimately?
You have to be very, very adventurous movie watcher for this one, and if you're that kind of person, then yeah, definitely check this one out. But if you're looking for like let's watch a scary movie tonight, no, this is not the one for you.
So overall, it almost worked for you. It almost did work for you. This movie kind of didn't.
No, I like the movie and I like where it went. I just didn't understand it.
Okay.
I feel like it was trying to the movie was trying to get at something or tell me something.
Got it.
And I just wasn't picking it up. Not that I didn't like it. I just, literally just went right over my head.
Cool. So
if the filmmaker wants to put a catcher's mitt right here and then watch it again, maybe I'll catch more of it. But yeah, I feel like I'm missing something. I'm blaming myself more than the movie.
It's still a recommend for you, though.
Yeah. Again, you have to be an adventurous movie watcher.
Which you personally are. You are adventurous.
Yeah.
Went over your head. I think, Bruce, do you think I think it's going to go over a lot of people's heads, right? This movie, The Feast?
Yeah, this is like one of those movies I think that you show it to somebody you're with, and they might hate you because you showed it to them.
Okay, so my take on The Feast is I really dislike this movie. I really disliked this movie with a passion. It's a slow burn. got me like Eric Holmes got me really frustrated for the longest time. It was moving at a snail's pace. I felt like my eyes were bleeding just watching this movie. And there are some really, even during the slow burn moments, there are some really graphic moments even before it gets really graphic in the third act that I just thought was ugh. So yeah, for most of this movie, I just could not wait till this movie was finished. I just did not like this movie whatsoever. And then the third act happened and it explained everything. And I ended up really enjoying The Feast. And I felt bad because it really is, to Eric's point, you're correct. There is a and Bruce is correct too, the barrier of entry to The Feast is very high. The caveat to this movie is you, like Eric was saying, you really have to be adventurous and you have to ride the slow burn train. And whether you get it or not, you have to actually immerse yourself into what's going on. Once you get there, the third act is a total knockout. I can't believe what happened in the third act, and it really sold everything for me. Sometimes, sometimes a third act can save the rest of the movie, or in this case, a third act can make the beginning of the movie and the middle of the movie make a lot more sense to the viewer. And credit goes to director LeeHavenJones. He knows what he's doing. He could have made this movie a lot faster paced, a lot more entertaining, instead of really slowly drawing us in. It's only people like Bruce who actually have that certain kind of palate for that slow burn for a thriller. Yeah. It'll go right in. It goes right into their gullet. But LeeHavenJones knows that he's alienating a whole bunch of other people just by having us hold on to those rails for about, 60 minutes. Yeah. But for me, the third act absolutely saved it. Like Eric, I recommend this movie, but I loved it a little bit more than Eric did. I loved it probably as much as Bruce did, even though, Eric, to your point, I ended up understanding everything about this movie, and it says a lot. Maybe it says a lot of things too much towards the end, but hey, I'm all for it. And I feel as privileged as those people in the houses, and it was a really bad. I did not like looking at myself in the mirror after finishing The Feast. I'll tell you that right now. I'm going to be a lot nicer to people, and I promise not to actually work out on exercise bikes anymore. So, Bruce, any final thoughts on the?
I would just say I think for people who do end up liking this movie, I think this is one of those movies, kind of like we talked about with Tenet and other movies like that, where if you like the movie, this is one of those that you really want to go and decode. So I think some people are going to really, really enjoy that aspect of it. But like we all said, a huge portion of the audience will just not be up for this ride. So.
And Bruce, do you want to go? I mean, does the average viewer want to go through what Eric Holmes went through or what I went through? Right, Eric? It's a lot of stuff to get through before you get to that stuff.
Yeah, you said it's like being on a slow-moving train. I would say it's more like pushing a slow-moving train.
Yes.
So this actually might make you, our faithful listeners, to actually make you you might want to see The Feast after what Eric and I had said about this, because even though it is a huge barrier to entry, there's a big wrap up, and of course, Bruce you really loved this movie, right? You ended up really loving it.
Yeah, I did like this quite a bit. Yes.
Okay, so Bruce, since you're anchoring this review, you highly recommend The Feast to blank.
I think what Eric said is exactly the right thing. If you're really adventurous, if you really like these very, very off-kilter type of directors, like we talked about David Lynch or things like that, give it a chance. This might be your cup of tea. But if you want a more kind of average fare, I would say you might be out of this. So
after we record this, we're going to do a quick 5-minute spoiler of The Feast, and we're going to explain to Eric Holmes what this movie was about. You want to do that, Bruce? Right
sure.
After the movie? Yeah.
Let's try. I would love to try. I would love to give a crack at it.
The very 5-minute crack. We'll do a minute. Yes, Eric Holmes. Yes, sir.
I have an idea. So like you got Maya Deren Meshes of the Afternoon.
Oh yeah.
So weird and crazy, and I think like people that like that weird and crazy, you like to watch it. Yes. But like the first half of the movie is like what was it, the Maya Deren, where the guy's just like sitting there doing karate to himself, like shadow boxing.
Yeah.
That's like the first half. So you gotta get through like that before you get to the crazy.
That's so funny, Eric. I was actually going to mention Maya Deren in this episode, and you actually mentioned Maya Deren for me. That's a little bit of synchronicity. But I wasn't going to mention Maya Deren for The Feast. I was going to mention Maya Deren for our Abel Ferrara film, Zeros and Ones. I think
there's still time.
I think your analogy was probably a little bit more apropos. Anyways, The Feast. We're closing out on The Feast. Recommend from Eric Holmes. A strong recommend from me. Both Eric and I give the caveat about the patient stuff. Huge recommendation from Bruce Purkey, or AKA Bruce Willis, on The Feast. Again, it's in select theaters, on demand everywhere you rent movies. Friday, November 19th. Directed again by LeeHavenJones. Oh, you know what, Bruce? This is a movie that has a lot of, you said decoding, a lot of rewatchability if you really get into it, right? Because then you can pick up the pieces upon a second viewing kind of thing.
I can see the people who like this really liking it and going back to it again.
Tywel, goi. Diolch.
Swper.
Bys ti'n bod? Ti ddim wedi gweld gwn o'r blaen?
Hon ydy dy forwyndiau mewn noson, ie? Di oed pan eisiau help arni baratoi swper I 7 o bobl, cofio?
Lycyn I gweld ti'n paratoi pryd 3 chwrs ar bendinan?
Ti'n dall mai ti sy'n cael y fraint o'i blingo nhw?
Sy'n bod?
7 oedden nhw. 2 gyningen.
Mwy nag un. Fydd yn brolio am hyn am wythnosau. Na pam mae dad yn joio dod ma. I ladd creaduriaid I niwed. Ti'n saff I fy nôl i'r tŷ. Yr unig bobl mae dad eisiau seithi yw ei elynion gwleidyddol a'i rieni. Gafodd Gwyn blentyndod trist iawn. Ar beth y ti ar dy gris?
So now we're back to the spoilers. We're back. The Feast. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Bruce, tell Eric Holmes, what did he miss?
Well, I don't know. So, I mean, I don't know. I might have missed, or I don't know what you think, too. So we can talk about it. So the way I read it.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Do your reading. What do you got?
Eric, what did you miss? What didn't turn on for you as far as what did you not understand?
Well, so I knew the guy was eating a lot. I saw him eating a lot, like to almost a ravenous degree, and stuff like that. I figure probably meant something else other than he's just eating a lot or he's possessed. Like I feel like, oh, he's the guy with the money, so that's while all this is going on in the background, he's the rich fat cat just hoarding, all to himself. Like I don't know if that's what it is, but I felt like there was stuff in the movie that had more to it than what you're actually seeing.
You're halfway there. You're 50% there. That's correct. That is correct reading. Bruce, you were going to say?
Well, my reading is, okay, I don't know the folklore, but I think it's something like this. They start the movie by drilling in the ground, and they're drilling into this sacred mound, which is some ancient mound.
It's in a section called The Rise. Yeah,
The Rise. You're not supposed to do anything there. I believe they release some sort of spirit, a spirit of the earth. Maybe there's some kind of a mythical creature from Welsh mythology that is like kind of like a siren, maybe. Anyway, that goes into the body of the woman who drowns, which is Katie, because they say that she died in that crash.
That was a car. Yeah.
Yes, they talk about early in the movie. She comes there. Basically, she's like an unearthly being that arrives at this party and is kind of taking it in because she doesn't quite understand it all. And that's why she reacts really weird to things like hunting, guns, rabbits, all that stuff, because it's kind of like she is from this older, very earthbound spirit, and they all represent like very non-earth-like or environmental kinds of things.
They represent urban sprawl.
Yeah, you got the kids who are both spoiled in different ways, and like the first thing she does is the axe falls on his foot. She like destroys the axe essentially, and that causes him to get hurt in a way that goes with his addiction. The other kid is hurt in a way that goes in his addiction, which is kind of his vanity. And the dad, all these things are basically her giving them a fate based on their kind of their corrupted modern way of going about the world. It's almost Shakespearean or something in that way. So it's kind of this weird revenge tale of like the Earth getting revenge on all these like assholes.
Yeah. So what is her name? Katie?
Yeah.
Cadi. So Katie, yeah. So she's a spirit. She's a woman. She is the spirit who actually haunts the rise. She is the presence of the rise. They're not supposed to actually build on the rise. That's urban folklore. You're not supposed to touch that area. And that's at the beginning of the movie. Once they start drilling for the minerals of that area, there's that worker who actually gets injured in the beginning, and then it goes right into the slow burn of why is this Katie girl is she so quiet? It's because she's a spirit. It's almost a ghost who is there to haunt and inflict damage on these privileged people who are there to only extract value from Mother Earth, from nature. They are there to extract minerals for their own financial gain, and they do it in a very abusive way. So ultimately, this movie, The Feast, is the nature feasting on the privileged and the entitled. Because it starts off with, you think the entitled are the ones who are having the feast. The ones who are being feasted on are the actual human beings who are abusing the land that they live on. So that is my interpretation of The Feast. And that's why I ended up really loving the movie, because it's like eating the rich. You're actually giving them their just desserts via the spirit of this Katie girl. And yeah, so that's the ultimate read of the movie. Yeah.
Okay. Now things are starting to click, and synapses are starting to click. Because with the drilling and they're like, oh, we make enough to get by farming. They're like, well, you can drill and you can get more. And then so
yes.
the idea that you can only do one or another. We're gonna stop making food so we can drill for minerals and get money. And meanwhile, the guy that's paying for it is eating all the food.
Right, he's abusing. Yeah,
yeah. I mean,
and then also in the beginning, towards the beginning, you have Katie. I'm mispronouncing the name. She goes up to the portrait, the painting, and she goes up and she kisses it. The painting is the actual the landscape of the land, and that's why she's kissing the painting, because she as the spirit has a kinship to the earth, from whence she came. That's why she feels that bond to it. And the rabbits, they weren't actually killed by them, man. The rabbits were actually left on the tree. It's the rich man not doing his own dirty work and trying to, there's nothing wrong with killing rabbits on your land for food. But if you're actually using a proxy of carcasses that are found on a tree and actually claiming that for your own, you're claiming
bragging about it.
So
on a land, it's horrible. It's horrific in her eyes, in that woman's eyes, that spirit's eyes. Yeah.
So maybe I'm taking this a step too far then. But
no, you're not.
You have the. Oh no, with what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
But so you have the lower class, the servants, pretty much, and they could stop what they're doing at any time, and the rich guy would be offended and leave. That's the relationship I get early on. It's like, everything's got to be perfect because this is the guy with the money and this is the guy that's going to do everything. If the air quote lower class just walks away, then the upper class doesn't, their environment falls apart and they can't do the things to destroy things that they want. So I wonder if part of that is, what am I trying to think? Like, do your part to not aid people in destroying things. I don't know. I think there's something to that. I think I just went down a
no. It is it's a class struggle, and I think to your point, the fact that Katie, I'm just gonna call her Katie.
Like I guess basically within our tiers, we all do our part in fucking shit up. It's kind of
right.
It's kind of what I'm getting at.
Right. And the fact that even though Katie's a spirit, she actually the spirit actually represents in their eyes, lower class, which in our eyes is just middle class, right? She represents a hard worker. But it's so funny, if you notice, even though she's a spirit and she's not responsive, they don't even respond to her, even though they make abusive suggestions or the father tries to actually he does a sexual come on to her. The boys are trying to come on to her as well, or they actually try to accost her to do other things. Even though she's not responding, they're actually not even listening to her. So it's one of these things where it's also a sign that some of them, these entitled rich folk, they're not listening to quote unquote the hired help. That's another layer behind this movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Like she's invisible to
Yep.
them.
Mhm.
She's just a mirror that lets them all give out their most base like aspects.
All right.
And that also reflects that, how people treat the lower class, right? They're invisible to them. That
Yes.
whole wine glass thing, just dropping it and like, oh yeah, clean up, and she's just left there to do it. And it's pretty good. I think it's
And
really
she
good.
definitely cleans that wine glass up. She definitely cleans that shard up. And that shard, that has to be the most just harrowing piece of lovemaking I've ever seen in my life, folks. That's a spoiler. There's just, where the thing goes.
Still not as good as Zeros and Wands, which is undeniable masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. But I do like that you guys explained this to me because, like I said, I got the feeling that I was just completely. This went right over my head. As soon as you guys mentioned, I'm like, oh, I am stupid.
No. I think it's just that little thing. I think that it's the little thing with the
Just need
the
that
little
little
detail.
catcher's mitt up here.
No, the little detail with the car that actually went in the water and someone there, and then that's why the woman's husband wasn't able to be there for the feast. And ultimately, what happened is, here again, right, Bruce, you have the blue collar people doing all the work that on the land. They're basically shepherding the whole thing, while the rich people get to really claim all the minerals and all the hard work, right? So that's what this movie's trying to say in many ways. And I think, Eric, to your point, I think that again the barrier of entry is going to be really high, but for people like Bruce who really love it, those are the people who really just latch on not just to the themes, but like Bruce was saying, we will really love to start decoding it upon a second view, which we're going to get to see.
I think another problem with it was, the problem with me watching it was I was so checked out at the beginning because it didn't feel like it was going anywhere. It was just like this is a cool shot, cool. People are staring at each other. People are staring out windows. Nothing's happening, and then by the time something was happening, now I got to go back and this is saying something. Oh fuck, I missed it.
Yeah, so many of these movies don't pay off. So I think it's like you kind of get trained to not have it go anywhere, but this actually went somewhere. So
Bruce, while every character in this movie is pretty much tragic, except the spirit, right? Who do you think, in your opinion, is the most tragic character in this movie, in this story?
Tragic as in like pitiable or like terrible?
Humanity itself.
I think pitiable.
I think if anybody, it may be the drug addicted like son, possibly.
Because
I might give him
misguided.
the most benefit of the doubt, but the other ones I had no pity for.
I had pity, in a sense, for the mother, because she stepped on both worlds, Eric. So the mother, she knew the whole folklore, the whole urban myth. She grew up on the actual land. She was one of them. She was a farmer. She's actually the one who knows how to skin the rabbit and cook it. She's actually closer to the blue collar people in the movie than she actually gives herself credit for.
Like she knows the song.
She knows the song because that's the song of her mother, right? So that's a song from the earth, and she's the one who actually is the ultimate betrayer of it. She betrays her own soul and blood, and it comes back to haunt her and her brood, right? So I think it's a very interesting movie to, like you're saying, to decode. But that is our explanation of The Feast, Eric. So
you saw the movie, and I saw the movie. And to tell you the truth, after watching it, I didn't understand what it was I was watching. But there's sometimes you take chances, and you gotta people get creative. Sometimes creativity works in weird ways. I don't know, but I do have to the bravery of these filmmakers to just kind of put it all out there. I mean, it means something, man. And yes, this is part of the review.
Okay. So that is a reference to something else that hopefully, if you see all of the movies mentioned on this podcast, you will understand. Yes, hopefully that won't be a big zero of an explanation for you guys. We will see you guys next week for the Find Your Film podcast. Very good, Eric Holmes. My captain. We'll see you guys next week.